Hi, everyone, and welcome again to Mystic Revolution, where Wendy, Wolf, and I talk about all things mystic and mystical. But before we get into this week's episode, let's do a little meditation. So I invite you to close your eyes and take a nice deep breath in. And let yourself drop down into your heart. Out of your head space into your heart space. And tune into the earth below you and the sky above. And for fun this time, let's bring in a nice big dose of sky energy. Energy from source, a beautiful ball of light. Bring it down into your heart. See if you can allow it to get bigger and brighter. And just notice how it feels. And take a nice deep breath again into your heart. And then let's ground from your heart space. Just allow a cord or a pillar of light to drop from your heart all the way down through your torso, through your root chakra at the base of your spine, all the way down to the center of the earth. Down to the heart of the earth, connecting your own heart to the heart of the earth. And as you're doing that, allow your feet, if you're sitting in a regular chair, or your legs, to really tune into that earth energy. Let yourself feel it in your legs. Let yourself really pull that energy up into your body and let it hold you and embrace you. And know that you are safe and you are solid. And your own heart is illuminated with source. And let's take a nice deep breath in and exhale out. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And before we get started, I just want to say a little note on meditations. We do them differently every time. You may hear some repetition, but right, all of this is about playing with energy and directing energy and just noticing how it feels in your body. So
yay.
Let's get back into our conversation about conscious creation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Wendy is driving today's conversation.
Yay.
What's on the agenda, Wendy?
Yay. So I'm kind of seeing this as a little two-part series here in the middle of our season about our capacity for conscious creation and creative change.
Yes.
And we talked last time about having this, and can we allow the goodness that's right here to come in, and can we ride the river of that? And we talked about how I've noticed that there's a big divide between some of us being able to just create and have and wonderful things, and others of us are like, what about me? And so when I looked at it, there was like these two major things I was noticing. We talked about the first of them last time, which is if this whole thing that we're talking about is like a mountain, like Everest, what's our position around the mountain? Where do we come from? And what's our perspective, how far we are up it?
Right.
And we did that last time. And this time I want to talk about what provisioning we are bringing to the mountain and what practices we have. Because it makes such a difference. How are we equipped? And how we
such a difference.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's huge. I think you've probably heard in this conversation, if you've listened to other ones, that like how much we own what's going on really makes a difference. How much, and we had a whole season on energy mastery. Are we able to be the captain of our ship? Are we able to say come and go about energy and stuff? And that's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. right? You've talked a lot about, am I making it happen or is it happening to me? Right. And how the mindset is things are happening to me is it automatically you're giving away your power. Automatically you're giving away your energy, which isn't to
Yeah.
say we don't have things that happen to us, but back to the idea of perspective and our provisions in dealing with it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And just one thing I didn't say last time, just to say how important the position and perspective is. It's like there's this wonderful little meme that's gone around in different ways, and it's just like one's it's is this a 6 if you're on this side, or is it a 9 if you're on this side, right? It's just like which direction are we looking from makes all the difference. Is it 6 or
Yes.
9? And I know it's so silly and little, but it's just like, oh my gosh, how many people are fighting about 6 or 9? Um,
Yeah. I'm finding about a lot of things like that. Yeah,
yes, yes.
absolutely.
And we might think, oh, like we don't, the first time these newfangled cars, God bless me, I have a 25-year-old car, and I went to my aunt and uncle who have money, and I couldn't start their car. This was many years ago too. It was just like all you have to do is press the button. I had to figure that out, and then you have to press really like where's the key go? There's no key. What's going on? And then right, and then I had to like press the brake. You have to press the brake hard. Like you can't just put
Mm,
your foot like so I'm sitting. I can't tell you how I don't want to say how long I couldn't start the car for. But right, it's just like I didn't know. And we don't know what we don't know.
we don't know what we don't know.
And
Yeah.
like how hard is this? Everyone knows I didn't know.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I
Did you
have
finally get the car started?
I did, but I had to call the makers. I had to call my
Oh my God.
stepdad. It was absurd. And then finally, I like pushed hard on the brake. Nobody could tell me. I'm like, I'm pushing on the brake. No one could tell me. And then finally I did it accidentally. Right. But
That,
like we don't know. And
yeah.
so I think that's a really good way into what we're going to talk about today, which is what are our provisions? What are we bringing to the game? And what are our practices? So, starting cars. I just do want to say on my own behalf that I happily drive a manual transmission. So it's not like I'm an idiot. Right? I can drive cars. It's just I didn't know these newfangled cars. I just didn't know.
Totally. No, it completely
Um,
makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah. So let's talk about provisions. I think that's an interesting place to start.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that of course, in the metaphor, like what's in our big pack, and did we remember our oxygen bottles and all this stuff, right? Things that we really need. But from in the soul game, in the mystic climbing the mountain, I believe everything comes down to who we're being, first of
Mm-hmm.
all,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, oh, is my hair right and do I have the right clothes, or
Mm-hmm.
did I buy the right backpack? If it's the right brand? It's like, who am I being? And out of that, our doing can happen.
Yeah.
So much of the work that we do is about being and allowing ourselves to be ourselves and allowing ourselves to grow up into who we are.
Yeah.
For real, not theoretically, not, this kind of person is in these days, this kind of style is in. No, just really ourselves. And that doing naturally comes out of that. That's a wonderful Dao De Jing quote that I love. It's like, are we willing to wait until the doing naturally flows out of
Mm.
just being?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, really, that's the thing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're carrying, but do you have anything to say?
Well, I totally agree with you. And I know there was a time where I thought I didn't have a lot of the things that other people had.
Yes.
Um, and I mean, I know that a lot of people feel that way. I mean, certainly it's right, it's a big topic of discussion even now in in our world about, people that don't have things or people that have more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in my thinking, because I didn't have certain things or certain life things, my
Mm-hmm.
perceived advantages, then
Yeah.
I didn't get to have.
Yes.
I didn't get to do those things.
Yes.
And so how do we shift? Well, this goes back to our last conversation about rising consciousness in our soul senses, but can you just touch on that a little bit before we like how we start to realize we have provisions and opening up to that?
Yeah, that's the practices, I
Okay.
would say.
Oh,
That's
great.
the practice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
So,
Okay.
so we'll finish here. But like, I totally relate to what you're saying about like, for me, when I went into the world, I found my experience was that it felt like so many people had these incredibly enriched environments they grew up in.
Yeah.
Very like, they talked about important things over the dinner table, or they had certain experience. It just felt like, oh my gosh, I just grew up so hungry for lots of things, lonely,
Yeah.
but also hungry for information. Like I was a
Right.
good reader, but like I was scraping for books. I'm really interested in like, how does the world work, but I'm scraping for the how does the world work.
Yeah.
And so I just really related to what you said. Like other people, they learn three languages and they talk about, ethics at the dinner table or whatever. It's like it's a very different world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, but we can make up for it. We can put in our backpack more books. We can, travel the world when we're adults instead of kids. We can learn languages then. So there's nothing we can't undo, but it really can take something, and we'll get to that in practices. But
Yeah.
what I want to say about carrying is that some stuff holds us down. Like some people put their backpacks full of stuff that's not helping.
Yes.
You think of it in terms of carrot and stick, or things that draw us forward or things that draw us back. Like some of us have backpacks full of shit that is not helping, really not helping. And other people have like these
Yeah.
jetpack,
Yeah.
right? Like it really matters. And so can we, well, in the practices, can we dump out what's not working and find what's working?
Yeah.
Bill Bryson's, he wrote Walk in the Woods about walking the Appalachian Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And right in the beginning, it's just hilarious. It's just, because I've backpacked a good deal
Yeah.
in my early life. And there's this hilarious scene near the beginning where his friend had gotten so frustrated, really heavy pack. I can't do it anymore. Such a heavy pack that he just starts throwing basically everything over the cliff. So, I get it. Like things are heavy, right? It makes sense. But he also threw the coffee filters, right?
Oh,
Like, which
oh no.
basically don't weigh anything, right? Like, it's just like there's a discernment that we can apply, right? It's like coffee filters are really helpful and they're not very weighty. They're not pulling us forward, but they're not pulling us back. And then don't have to use leaves.
Right. Totally. Well, and this to me is like such an important conversation because I think this is true for you, but I work out with a lot of people who are caretakers and take care of people. And they
Hmm.
don't just take care of people, but they on take
Yeah.
on the burdens or the emotions or the expectations that other people have
Hmm.
and carry them around. And literally more than half of them have back problems because they are energetically carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Yes.
And um, so to your point about being able to discern, like, am I dumping off like, a bunch of garbage or am I throwing away the coffee filters? Like you can use your discernment
Yeah.
to figure out what's yours. Again, the conversation, what is yours and what is not.
Yes. And what do you need to climb the mountain?
Yeah.
And
What do you need
yeah,
to climb the
yeah.
mountain?
And one of the things what I talk about that, Susanna, is that we have a tendency to carry other people's backpack.
Yes.
It's like if everybody carries their own backpack and we are make choices that are useful about it, then we can all be fine.
Yeah, we can all carry the weight of our own backpack. Yeah.
So some other things that I noticed are like validation and invalidation, which we've talked about. But like, am I full of, I can do it, I'm okay, everything's fine, I'm one with all, isn't it great? Or am I full of, I suck and there's something wrong with me and I don't deserve and I'm not worthy? Ow. That's, by the way, that's the anti-sacred truth. That's the that's
Yeah.
invalidation. But if that's heavy, and it takes a minute to clear out, but clearing out is helpful. And
It's
there's nothing wrong.
You're right. There is nothing wrong. And with that, and I think I I'm just gonna say, I think some people have trouble with we go back to allowing themselves to really be and experience happiness. Um, Somehow if they do, they are thinking that I'm not being in reality if I because the world is going crazy right now. How can I allow myself to be happy or have joy or
I
to
know.
laugh with my friends or, strive to have something that seems, you know, frivolous in the face of big world problems. And
Yeah.
I think honestly, this is exactly the time when we need to allow ourselves to step into that expansiveness.
Yes.
Right? You can speak more to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such a temptation. And there's also a social pull. Not everyone, but there's a social pull in certain circles. It's like there's people who are spending enormous amounts of their of time and energy, and I can relate. I used to grieving in the face of what's going on in the world, going on in wars, going on in politics, going on in the environment, and I used to be in the same place, but I had no energy to live. I just want to be clear,
Yeah,
and I had no energy to make the difference I'm here to make.
that is it,
Mm.
right? I think spending time in grief about whatever it is so important. We have to validate our feelings, right? We have to be, however long it takes. But there's a difference from allowing the process of grief, being with grief and moving through it, or being in anger, whatever it is,
Whatever it is.
and then spiraling into it and having it be like your modus operandi or the lens through which you see everything.
Yes. Yes. And heaven forbid anyone be in joy or peace or ease, because don't you know the sky's falling?
Yeah.
And it doesn't
I hope I'm just in
uh,
great joy and laughter if if the world implodes. I hope I'm right. I mean, I want to be having fun and
yeah,
enjoying love and being around people I care about. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I think
yeah.
everybody does
So
in terms
and it's possible. I just want to say it's possible. Like I it didn't seem possible when I was younger, but I like that's the whole idea of these practices we'll get to.
yeah.
Is it seemed impossible. Like I wanted to stay engaged and I wanted to understand and I wanted to do whatever form of prayer or help. And but I still do prayer, I still send angels, I still send money, and then I go have a happy day. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that's not it's not acceptable to say in some circles. And but I just want to say that that's the only way that I can get out of bed and do what I'm here to do, because I have things to do that make a difference too.
Yeah. And you know, doing some tending to my parents and being around some caregivers that have worked with them, their energy and heart-centeredness, as for myself, when I choose to be there, brings so much joy to people that are in healing. It helps if you really want to help, like
Yeah.
allowing yourself to have your own joy and bring that and ripple it out
Yes.
means so much to people who are having hardship or
Yeah.
dealing with illness or whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a
And
healing. It's a
it's a
total
healing.
healing.
It's the best thing we can do. It's called being the change.
Being the change. Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay. So how about we have a break and then we'll talk a little bit about practices.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hey friends, Susana and I want to remind you that we offer a Mystic Revolution meditation. It's the first Tuesdays at 4:30 Pacific. Please come as our guest. You can see our website for the link. And thank you for playing with us.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
And we are back from the break. Hi, everyone. We're just going to dive right back into our conversation. Wendy, I know you were about to say something.
Yes. So we were talking about provisions and what provisions we have, and if it's a heavy or light, it's helping us move forward or back. And now we're going to talk about practices. And one could say that pretty much all that we do day in and day out is practices that go below everyday consciousness and help us, I like to say, perceive, choose, and act. But there's lots of ways to say it. But we have practices, and they're soul practices. So we can't talk about them a lot. It doesn't make a difference. It helps to do them. But I want to talk about what these practices do. Because you might have different practices, but let's make sure that they do these things if you choose, because they're useful. For example, are we in, I like the soul gym analogy, like in our soul gym, are we developing a vector and a momentum? Are we allowing ourselves to go in a certain direction, a certain, faster? That's useful. What I do every day, is it getting me where I actually want to go? Is it getting me up the mountain? Is it getting me serving people? Is it getting me to become who I am in the world? Like, it's huge. And
it's huge.
Are my daily practices getting me there?
Yeah. I think, and I know you're going to get more into this, but I'm just recalling times in my life when I felt like, and I'm just going to use work as an example. I felt I didn't like my job. It felt real hard. It was very, very stressful. And I would spiral into these things like I'm wasting my life, or like,
yes,
these tools helped me shift my lens and gain a different perspective so that I could work through this lens of mysticism, or whatever you want to call it, more spiritual consciousness. And then that shifted the game.
Yeah.
Right. I had this idea, well, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. And I wasn't. But the tools helped me actually make the shift that was required of me so I could be doing the other thing, right?
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. And then we can have it, and then life can change, and we can have what we asked for. We can receive it.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, we can't. And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and the thing about the provisions, like there's so many things that are going on in a situation that may not be optimal, that you can apply the energy or the perspective to. Like, it's great to practice these things in a state of time of your life when may not feel optimal, because then you're building your muscles and you can play with it in ways, and then that creates the velocity that you were talking about too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the soul gym. Let's talk about the soul gym, because when we go to the physical gym, we develop strength, muscle, and we develop endurance, and we develop balance, and we develop flexibility, etc. And we do the same thing in the soul gym. And the more we do it, if we have a soul practice that is effective, that's what's happening, among many other things. We bring it. And I really like the tools we have, but like, there's people I've known who like there's somebody I knew who went to Catholic church every morning. She had energy. She had a soul force that was real,
Yeah.
that I could perceive and play with her.
Mhm.
That is it the most effective way? I don't think so, honestly, but it works.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we'll do is works. It's a matter of, can we find something that works really, is very effective.
Yeah.
Just like people are like, hey, try this workout way, try this gym, try this way, right? Everybody's like trying to hack it. There's better and worse ways to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it can be a church, it can be the gym, right? There's so
Yeah.
much energy that gets moved in that kind of physical activity. It can be
Yes.
anything like
Martial
that.
arts are really great for that.
Yeah.
Qi.
Whatever meditation practice you have. I mean, the tools that Andy and Wendy and I work with are sort of, I'm just gonna say, an amalgamation to like combine all of those things together in a way that I think is really interesting, and for me just dials in and gets it, but gets to the heart. But anyway, come to a
Yeah.
meditation.
We said it a lot this time.
Yeah.
And part of that is what we do at the gym, or and then bringing it into our world is well, we talked about vector and momentum, but also I'm using my physics, but also we're gaining like this potential energy. The potential, like being at the top of the hill, you're
Yeah.
or pulling the string, the spring back, pulling the spring back, pulling the spring back. It makes tension that when it's released is very powerful.
Right.
And we've heard, we've seen, we've read about these big players in the spiritual game, and when they show up, shit happens, right? And part of that is this: they bring so much potential that can be applied, and they're not wasting their energy. They're building that potential so that they can come and help us transform, and we can do that too in our
Mhm.
world. For us and for everybody else.
Yeah.
So we've already talked about discernment. So important. Discernment, so important. What we didn't say is, I'm doing a couple of these. Discipline. Like going to the physical gym builds our discipline muscle. Doing the writing we mean to do every day before work or whatever. Doing the dishes before we go to bed. Whatever it is, the growing of that discipline and then applying that on the inside. So we're not throwing coffee filters. We're doing that on the inside, so we're not wasting our energy where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Is very helpful. And the discipline of showing up and doing our meditation or our healing practices.
Yeah. And in relation to that, to energy mastery, right? That helps, the discipline helps you to be able to direct more accurately. I'm just going to say, like, own it and like really fine tune it and direct it
Yeah.
with greater accuracy and intention. Yeah.
Yeah. And diligence. It's a
Diligence.
little different. And there's this great Christian scripture. It's like, applying diligence to enter into rest. The rest that is here, the rest that is right. But diligence to what? To peace, diligence to building our soul muscle, like whatever it is. Like, I think that's a good word. And they're not always associated with, it's just like sometimes the mystic experience is just like looked at like, la, 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 like, and these words like diligence and discipline and even discernment aren't always talked about.
Yeah.
But it keeps us out of a lot of trouble and puts us on the mountain where we can really enjoy the fruit, I think.
Yeah. And as with any discipline, I'm thinking like meditation or yoga, or I mean, there are some days you may not want to do it. I would think we talked about it a little bit at some point with swimming, but
Oh,
once if it is a discipline and you're diligent about the discipline, then that's when the stuff starts to happen, you know? It really starts to happen, and you'll be like, go in, and then like, I'm just gonna say that's when the magic really starts to happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we could go on and on and on. In
Yeah, we
any of
could.
these parts that we talked about in the last 2 times, I just thought a nice wrap-up quote. I'm very enamored with Carl Jung's, lots of his stuff, but he said this really cool thing, which very much applies, I think, to this mountain conversation, which is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate.
Yes.
So all this conversation started with, like, some of us can have what we want and some of us can't. And it's not because God likes them better. Right? It's not because God likes them better. It's a joke that Michael and I have, but that's not why, right? It's because am I bringing the unconscious into conscious? Am I putting my house in order?
Yeah.
Or is everything just happening to me? And it's fate, or it's God, or it's, they're jerks and I'm not, or whatever. Like, can I take positive steps each day to be in the place where my choices matter?
Where your choices matter, and where we allow ourselves to really embody them, right? It's not just about doing the thing,
Right.
right? I did the ritual. I
Right.
have a discipline. Keep doing. Why is nothing happening? If and we've talked about this, but the point about the body and bringing the body into it, like, it's a
Yeah.
full on mind, body, spirit, soul thing.
Yeah.
And that sounds like it's a lot, but really it's the wholeness of who we are. It's allowing space for the wholeness of who we are
Yes.
to have space to show up and experience.
Okay, so that's our time, and this little 2-2-1-2 that we did on climbing Mount Everest, and how our position and perspective really matters, as well as our provisioning and practices.
Thank you so much, Wendy,
Thank
for
you, Susana.
bringing this conversation to the mystic table, if you will.
Yes.
And let's just take a minute to do a little meditation before we close out. Go ahead and close your eyes. And just take a nice deep breath in and out. And just let yourself settle into yourself. Let yourself settle into yourself. And as always, we invite you to take what resonates with you. Take some stuff to chew on. And if something didn't, just leave the rest behind. Just leave it behind. And taking another nice, big, deep cleansing breath in. And let's do a big sigh out. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And
Yay.
we will look forward to seeing you next time on The Mystic Revolution.
Thanks so much for playing with us. Please support Mystic Revolution by liking and sharing our show.
And sign up to get notified when new content is available.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.
Join us for our monthly Mystic Meditation on the first Tuesday of the month at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time.
Click on the link in the description to get more information and join the Mystic Revolution.
We look forward to seeing you then.